We basically Scripbox. We are a digital wealth management company. We're driven by a purpose of helping a million families achieve financial freedom.
How can Indians start investing wisely?
Indians have always been greatest savers. Okay. India's saving rate historically has been in the range of 30% or so.
Why do we think it is important for middle class to focus on wealth management?
What we have to realize is the biggest enemy in the whole process is inflation and taxation.
Where should beginners invest?
Mutual funds are much better vehicle.
What do you think about increasing the gold amount from this Diwali to next Diwali?
I have no idea.
Hi, I welcome you to the Crazy Careers podcast. Thank you so much for joining us in today.
Thank you, Dr. Nita, for having me here.
So, before we get into the conversation, would you mind letting us know a bit about yourself, your journey so far, and also the work that you do?
Yeah, I'm. We basically Scripbox. We are a digital wealth management company. We're trying to help people who needs us. We're driven by a purpose of helping a million families achieve financial freedom. We believe that the financial world is difficult to navigate for an average person because there is abundance of information barrage, and how one can simplify and make it most productive for themselves is what we are driven as a purpose.
So, my first question will be a broad question, I would say. I mean, it's a very subjective matter, but then still, I would really like to ask because most of our audience would really like to know about this. So, how can Indians start investing wisely?
Okay. I think it's a tricky one because if you look at the history, you know, Indians have always been greatest savers. Okay. So savings has never been a problem. I mean, eventually post independence, if you see, majority of our population was actually below the poverty line. And till date, agriculture supports as one of the most bellwether sector of the economy, employing the largest workforce. And India's saving rate historically has been in the range of 30% or so. Plus, we are deeply snitched with a very strong joint family framework, so to say, or a community framework. You go different parts of the country, you see how beautifully communities have aligned. And in case of a distress, communities comes together, families comes together to bail out the person involved. So if we take out the last 20 years or so, that has been our story for a very, very long time. It is just that with the technology intervention, ever since we have seen the first blip of upside, which started in the early 2000s and after the post-liberalization era, the private sector really taking over, service sector becoming an integral part of the economy, is where we have seen a large amount of workforce being moving from an unorganized sort of rural government sector to a private sector. This is where the actual requirement of saving becomes even more critical because so far you had the government, you had the community taking care of families and individuals. But now is the time when, we are moving away from the joint family framework. We are getting into nuclear families. Government is providing us good support to a certain section of society, but our middle class is really really growing much faster. So yeah, Amit, we have been good savers always, but now is the time that we have to be very mindful savers and very careful savers, if I may use that, because it's getting trickier by the day. Also, just I wanted to add that if you go back in the days, fixed income securities were so lucrative, so you were getting easily a double digit return by investing into a fixed income security way, not too far back, 15, 20 years back, which is not the case today. And therefore, for that extra, alpha, you need to be slightly more aware, vigilant, careful, and aligning your investments accordingly.
So, when we're talking about middle class, we know that a large chunk of our Indian community are middle class. So, why do we think it is important for middle class to focus on wealth management rather than people like coming under high income generating population?
So, I think it's a very, very well important question. Simply because two things. One, what we have to realize is the biggest enemy in the whole process is inflation and taxation. Okay.
Yeah.
And two, we have to see that aspiring India actually is also upgrading the inflation benchmark as they upgrade their lifestyle. So, let me try and explain this to you. So basically, what why do we need to save? We need to save so that we can provide for our needs in the future to
Yeah.
come. Okay. Basic needs are well taken care of as far as the middle class is concerned. So, your roti kapda makan is sorted.
Yeah.
The moment you sort that basic need, then again, we are still driven by a strong family system. So, therefore, providing for the children education, and also now that we are shifting from a more government centric controlled employee, setup to a more private controlled setup, whereby you don't have enough retiral benefits accruing to you, which can take care of yourself post retirement. So, therefore, you know some of these goals becomes very, very critical to provide for in the longer run.
Yes.
Okay, now in order to provide for these goals, there are like I said, there are two big enemies. One is inflation, two is taxation. So we see that while a cup of coffee which used to cost us 100 rupees a 10-year back is today costing us almost 250 rupees. So maybe in 10 years time you've seen 150% jump. Now you can calculate inflation in 10 years what it has been.
Right.
It is important to know whether that cup of coffee is what I'm going to consume 1 year down the line, or maybe 10 years or 15 years, whenever I wish to retire down the line, and accordingly calibrate inflation. Inflation is not the basic number that is impacting us. Inflation predominantly post retirement hits your medical expenses, your travel expenses. These two are the common expenditure which, apart from the living expenses that an individual requires post retirement. आपके पास समय है, now you will
Right.
travel more, or if you're not well, you will provide for your medication. The second aspect is taxation. um, you know you do whatever, but you will still have to pay tax. Today there is no regime whereby you can save on taxation. Okay. Earlier, equity capital gain tax were exempted in the longer term.
Mhm.
Today that is not the case as well. Now, somebody who started saving 10 years back, for him the rule of the game were different. Today their rules of the games have changed. So we have to be mindful that in times to come, these rules will continue to keep on changing, and we have
Yeah.
to accommodate and provide for them today. But having said that, what is also important is that if you would have seen, the aspirational growth has been tremendous in Indian population over the last 10 years specifically. If you see in the early 2000, the most fancy phone that you would wish to buy would still come in 5 to 10,000 bucks typically. Today, that 5 to 10,000 has become 1.5 lakhs or so. Okay. Similarly, going out was basically, going to your nearby restaurants, etc., which would have costed you, X amount. Today, that amount is almost 10x. And to add to that is convenience. Earlier, you still would have to make those efforts to go out and spend that kind of money. Today, convenience has made it easier for you to spend that kind of money sitting in your drawing room. Okay. And that has caused the aspirations to go up tremendously, which is again eating away your wallet silently. So, if you draw your attention towards how the consumer credit has grown over the last 10, 15 years, today, if you have to buy a mobile phone, you have to buy any white good, you have to buy any electronics, you just go to the showroom, swipe your credit card, convert it into your EMIs, and there you go. So, this convenience is conveniently eating away into a wallet share. Okay. uh, Giving us access to a better lifestyle, definitely today, but we have to be mindful that this better lifestyle will require much more savings in future. Today, for you to be able to subscribe to the same lifestyle in future, which unfortunately is not the case.
Yeah. Right.
So I would say that I think for the middle class, it is this awareness. Being a very mindful saver is extremely, extremely important.
Absolutely. So, can you point out a few money mistakes that most of the people make while investing?
If you see, 100 years back also, you know, investing markets were always driven by two factors, greed and fear.
Yeah.
Today it's the same, and tomorrow I don't think so it is going to change. Okay. So the common mistakes is I mean, like I just explained, that aspirations have grown. Now, with growing aspiration, I want to save less but earn more because my aspirations are growing. So that getting rich quickly, those kind of schemes are the most attractive to fall trap into, and that is where you see still, despite of such stiff regulation, such an amazing cleanup, one of the best digital infrastructure in the world we have in India today,
Yeah.
still people fall into the prey of all these digital
Fraudulence
frauds
and
and
all.
so much of frauds, etc., and all these Ponzi schemes coming along. So one needs to have patience. Patience is the price you pay for prosperity in future. Okay. So there is nothing called that one good idea which can make you rich quickly. Okay. If you can avoid those temptations, if you can just align your long-term goals with your investing journey and be patient, don't lose money. You'll automatically earn money. Is what I would like to tell to your viewer.
So there's a very fine line between saving and invest. So how young professionals can balance this both? Like they can save money also and they can invest also for their future goals.
Yeah. So, um, see, the typical equation for savings comes income minus expense is what you save, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it should be the other way around, because the moment you're able to establish your future goals, okay. For, let me take an example. Let's say you want to go for a vacation to Goa next year, and you know your total expenditure for the vacation is going to be 50,000 rupees. Okay. You have 1 full year to save for your vacation. Okay. All you need to do is save maybe 4,500 rupees a month, and you will be able to save enough for your vacation. So,
Right.
just determining the purpose of saving,
Yeah.
calibrating it with the time and uh, amount can be established, and this is what savings actually should be.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the other hand, investing is a completely different ball game altogether. Okay. Saving is controlling your behavior to w- to control your expenses in order to provide for the future goals. But investing is a much more important decision making as to where should you invest, where should this savings go in order for you to reach your destination timely. Okay. Now, let me take an example of a, again, simple journey. For example, if I have to travel from, let's say, Connaught Place to Gurgaon, which is 40 kilometers apart, let's a destination, and I have 1 hour to reach there. Okay. I need to drive at 40 kilometers per hour. That's the speed. Okay. If I have 1.5 hours, probably I can be driven at 25, 30 kilometers per hour, and I can reach my destination time. But if I have only half an hour to reach there, naturally my speed has to go up to 80 kilometers per hour to reach the same destination in the timely fashion. Now, let me correlate this to the previous example of planning for your vacation. Okay. Let's suppose instead of 50,000, sorry, let's say if you need that 50,000 in 6 months' time and not 1 year, so you will have to save not 4,000 but 8,000 every month. Okay. But at the same time, if you can calibrate the rate of growth also to your savings, that rate of return will get determined by how quickly you want to reach your destination, or you have to reach your destination.
Absolutely.
Okay. So currently, the simple factor, uh, we determine is what has been the past performance, and something that has delivered 20, 30, 40% return in the past years is what attracts us as investors to choose from, without putting a cadence to how much is sufficient enough for me. Maybe 10% is sufficient for me, maybe 15% is sufficient for me, maybe 8% is sufficient for me. And without knowing this sufficiency, I end up, taking risk which is beyond my capacity, only to get disappointed when those risk materializes.
Right. So, where should beginners invest? They should invest in mutual funds, stocks, or gold. What is your opinion?
Okay, so see, in my opinion, one has to be very, very honest to themselves.
Mhm.
They should know their level of awareness. They should know how much time they can dedicate to this particular aspect. Okay,
Yeah.
and also they should know the real purpose of investing. If you have clarity around these aspects, okay, there are only these 4 5 areas where you can actually go into. So one, you said stocks, you can say debt, commodities, etc. Mutual fund is one of the vehicles through which you can invest into either of them, stock,
Yeah.
debt, or gold. Okay. Now, depending upon your own sort of sophistication in terms of learning and awareness and experience, you can choose the vehicle you want. If you're very comfortable, you understand business models, you can go and invest in direct stocks very, very easily. However, if you don't know, then mutual funds are much better vehicle. One, they are much better governed. There is a full investment team which is mandated to manage those corpuses. There is a regulator sitting on their head deciding what you could do, what you cannot do. So defining those boundary lines so that investor interest is protected. And a very fraction of the cost. I mean, uh, recently there is a consultancy paper out. Rationalization of total expense ratio is further done by the regulator. 1.5, 1.8% is what a pure play equity fund can charge as a total expense ratio, fraction of a cost. But having said that, I would say diversification is key. After spending so many years also into this field, I feel that I'm a novice. I'm still learning. I don't know much about what's happening in the markets, what's driving the markets up or down in any which ways. Diversification helps us to not only diversify, between different asset class, but also to diversify in terms of risk. Compare yourself going into a restaurant where you're not very sure what you would like to order, and you end up ordering a dish which apparently is stale and you don't like it. Okay, that's the risk you're carrying, right? Instead, if you order a thali, you get probably 10 cuisines served together. You may try, you may like some, you may not like some. Overall, you will still have a better experience than the previous one. So, diversification gives you that advantage. At some point of time, something will do well, and you will end up at a consolidated level doing better than a lot of others. I mean, gold and silver is a classic example. Nobody ever believed how gold and silver would behave this way last year. Even if you were to talk about gold, people used to say there's no intrinsic value, there's only finite amount of gold. What will gold do? The stock market is doing so well. You have, you have a new government which is again pro growth, level of continuity. You have a US election down the line. Everything was looking so positive. And what happened? You had a flat market, and you had a almost a 60% return from last Diwali to this Diwali. Gold. Who would have ever imagined? So therefore, don't risk your everything on one particular idea, stock, etc. Ideally, one particular idea or stock should be less than 10% of your total wealth. You should be ideally diversified. Is what my suggestion would be.
Yes. What do you think about increase in the gold amount from this Diwali to next Diwali?
I have no idea. Quite honestly, it's anybody's guesses. The only certainty in the gold bond is that you will get that 1.25% in every 6 months. So 2.5% will come to you. At Scripbox, we believe that gold as an asset class should be part of your overall portfolio. About 5 to 10% allocation is definitely warranted. We also believe that investors who are already invested should stay invested because there is a good tax advantage that they are enjoying, and they are also sitting on a decent chunk of returns. For new entrants, gold bond may or may not be advisable. Rather, there are better instruments like ETFs and gold fund of funds, which can give a better participation in terms of both liquidity and transparency and pricing.
Right. So, how can investors protect their money when the market is up and down?
See, if you go back in history, and we have done an extensive amount of research in this field.
Yeah.
Every year we have seen markets going down by more than 10% in every single calendar year. Over a 35 years of our history. There have been many instances when markets are down almost 20% in a single financial year. Okay. However, uh, barring four instances, markets have always been positive. They've given a positive return year on year also. Okay. What I'm trying to tell you over here is market up and down depends upon your own circumstances. Okay. If I'm a long-term investor, let's say if I'm investing for my child's education and my child will need that fund 15 years down the line.
Mhm.
Okay. Today's market volatility should not bother me.
Yeah.
Plus, if I'm aware that, historically also it has happened, but, markets take similar or less time to come back also, and I have time on my side, then I should not bother. Then this
Mhm.
ups and downs will start bothering you completely. And this is where majority of the wealth is lost. A classic example is what happened during the COVID time. If you
Mhm.
remember, we got into the lockdown situation around the 21st, 22nd of March. Okay, there were two back-to-back lower circuits which the market hit around that time. Okay, at an index level, we had almost lost 40% or so from the headline numbers. Okay, but all it took was just 7 months. By November, you were back to the same level. Okay, so because there was panic, because there was so much happening, there was a disease which was unknown, there was lockdowns, people didn't know whether they will have a job, their businesses will survive, etc. A lot of people sold and exited the market completely. Those people could never come back to the markets, or even if they did at a much later stage, missing out that entire upside, or the entire, maybe if they would have stayed invested, avoiding the entire downside at the same.
Mhm.
So, one, like I said initially, also, patience is the price you pay for prosperity. So, you have to be patient. Two, we strongly believe that asset allocation is the best way forward.
Mhm.
If you're well diversified, if you're not into one single asset class at any given point of time, what you will also realize is something is going down, something is doing well also. Okay. And that will give you some sort of a confidence and comfort to stay invested. I mean, compare this to an investor who was diversified between equity and debt last year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
From 2021 till 2024, debt only delivered 6.5, 7% return. And it was very boring because your equity markets were actually delivering 18, 20, mid and small caps almost delivered 25, 30% return. So it was so
Mhm.
exciting to be in that segment. But last 1 year, equity markets went flat, and that 7% became such a great opportunity because you avoided that entire downside and your money has grown and beaten inflation. And of course, gold, like I said, has been a clear winner. If you are diversified between gold, debt, and equity, okay, there's some part of your portfolio which has driven 60% return, some part of your portfolio which has grown by 7.5%, and some part of the portfolio is flat. So that flat portfolio doesn't pinches you too much because you're already witnessing growth in some of the other segment of your portfolio. And hence,
Right.
diversification makes a lot of sense.
Right. Okay. So, the Crazy Careers is actually a very student-centric platform. So, most of our audience are either student or young professional. And by listening to this podcast, they would like to know your advice for them so that they can grow in their career. And also, in case they are facing some challenges, how do they navigate those challenges? So, I would like to hear it from you. What would be your advice for?
So I'm very, very driven and intrigued by the young minds in our country today. I wish I had that kind of wisdom back then. Today's youth, today's youngsters have great access to information, and to their credit, their ability to navigate that information to their advantage is incredible. And and therefore, I see when I meet a lot of young folks, I see their ability to dissect through the maze of the financial markets and figure out those securities, those mutual funds, which they believe that they can do really well. And some of them have actually done some excellent, job out of it also. But then investing journey is all about compounding, and compounding works over a longish period of time. Okay. And for you to be able to compound meaningfully, you need consistency. Okay. Uh, a 15% return will double your money in approximately 5 years' time, 4.5 years to be precise. Okay. So a youngster who is a 20-year-old today, their retirement is 40 years away. Now you can do the maths. 2 to the power 8 is what their compounding would be. Almost 1,000 times multiplier by the time they retire. Uh, you know, so the merit actually isn't starting as early as you can. Number one, okay, it doesn't matter. Even today, mutual fund allows you to save even 100 rupees, and that 100 rupees is also getting diversified across 50, 60 stocks.
Yeah.
So the micro SIP concept is so beautiful that even, I mean, uh, less than what you will provide for a cup of tea and bun maska as a chai sutta bar, you can actually start your investing journey in a very meaningful way. Okay, so some part of your wealth, uh, whatever it is, 100, 200, 500,000, whatever you can afford, start investing and be regular at it. That is two. Because if you're not regular, you will miss out on the managing the volatility of the market, because markets will be anything but a straight line. And therefore, every ups and downs, when you're investing regularly, you're able to catch up the ups and downs both. Okay. And three, be consistent with your choice. Because what happens is that if something does well, we start to believe that we know it all. And now we want to experiment with something else. Those experiments are very costly. Don't experiment too much. And even if you wish to experiment with a much smaller, insignificant amount so that it doesn't impact your longer term, goal.
Absolutely.
So, and then simple is better. Scriptbox is all about making things simpler. We started this company with the pretext of that only 4 mutual funds are good enough for you to navigate through your investing journey. With the advent of so much of market evolution, we have grown further in those choices. But mutual funds are good, very good investment vehicle, especially specifically for youngsters who are still learning. Please understand, your true wealth creator is not going to be this investment. Your true wealth creator will be what you will end up doing in your careers. If you want to become a doctor, scientist, an accountant, or for that matter, a business owner, the real wealth creation will happen there. Here, you will only invest what you will save from those wealth create.
Yeah, this is to back you up. Yeah.
Yes. So therefore, don't mix the two. At a younger stage, we think that by investing into a stock, we will create wealth. No, it's a savings that you're doing. You're parking your savings there for it to grow much better than the average. Probably the business does well. But that's not the end destination for you.
Right. It was really an insightful conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining this interview.
No problem. Thank you.